The scream rattled the living room windows like a banshee in a hurricane. Arthur burst into the room, expecting the worst, and immediately realized he hadn't expected nearly bad enough. Jeff stood proudly in the center of what used to be their shared living space. Now, it looked like a low-budget reality show had vomited everywhere. Red velvet curtains hung crookedly across the walls, floating candles bobbed on invisible currents, and a glittering blood punch fountain burbled ominously in the corner. At the heart of it all, Jeff wore a crimson tuxedo 2 sizes too small, beaming like a game show host who had finally lost his last marble. "Arthur, you're just in time for the big premiere," Jeff announced, arms thrown wide. Arthur froze halfway through the doorway. "What, The first ever Undead dating show," Jeff declared, spinning dramatically. His tailcoat flared behind him like a cape stitched together from bad decisions. As if on cue, a rickety spotlight flickered to life, illuminating a makeshift stage assembled from stolen furniture and questionable magic. 3 figures materialized under the light with a puff of sulphurous smoke. First was a vampire woman in skin-tight leather, lounging on a black velvet couch like she owned the concept of seduction. She offered the room a dazzling, fanged smile. "Lilith," she purred. "I enjoy poetry, long walks in the moonlight, and your inevitable doom." Beside her floated a slightly translucent man in a rumpled suit. His legs occasionally phased through the floorboards as he drifted back and forth. "Mort," the ghost said, looking mildly confused. "Pretty sure I used to be a dentist?" The third contestant oozed onto the scene in a nervous green puddle. Bulging cartoon eyes blinked rapidly as the slime creature tried, and failed, to maintain a humanoid shape. "Blorp," it said with a quivering voice. "I have anxiety." Arthur stared, taking in the floating cameras held aloft by skeletal hands, the bleeding heart decorations, the pulsing neon "Love Never Dies" sign sputtering in the background. "No," Arthur said flatly. "No way. I want nothing to do with whatever this is." Jeff clicked his claws together, and Arthur's sneakers fused to the floor with a nasty squelch. A camera slapped itself into his arms. A headset popped onto his head, whispering ominous threats in Latin. "Congratulations, you're our cameraman," Jeff chirped. "You'll have the best seat in the house for the blossoming of true, possibly cursed, love." Ominous music erupted from nowhere as banners unfurled from the ceiling. Round 1, group date. Arthur opened his mouth to object, but the contestants had already been dropped through a hidden trapdoor, vanishing with various shrieks, ghostly whooshes, and one damp splat. Jeff clapped Arthur on the back hard enough to almost knock him over. "The first group date," Jeff said proudly, "is a romantic scavenger hunt through the haunted hedge maze of heartbreak. It's got magic traps, spectral wolves, and a surprise open bar. Oh, and love spells. Lots and lots of love spells." Arthur closed his eyes and mentally updated his list of regrets. Somewhere in the distance, Blorp screamed, "I'm too sticky for this." Jeff winked at the cameras. The curtains flared dramatically. And the worst reality show in the history of existence officially began. Jeff adjusted his crimson tuxedo and grinned like a demon who'd just gotten away with something unspeakable. The stage lights flickered ominously as he stepped onto the now slippery set, clipboard in hand. "Welcome, my beautiful abominations," Jeff boomed. "Tonight, one lucky contestant will win the coveted final fang." He held up a rose dipped in silver glitter and, suspiciously, something that looked like dried blood. The contestants, if they could still be called that, shuffled awkwardly into place. Lilith leaned casually on a coffin prop, flashing a fangy smile that could stop hearts. Mort hovered slightly off the ground, blinking as if trying to remember why he was here. Blorp vibrated nervously in his puddle, emitting tiny, anxious bubbles. Arthur stood behind a floating camera, dead-eyed, headset hissing every few seconds with announcements like, "Cue dramatic lighting," and "Prepare the heart-shaped explosions." "Tonight's challenge," Jeff declared. "A classic group date, romantic obstacle course." At his signal, a side wall of the living room shuddered and split open, revealing the haunted hedge maze of heartbreak. A chaotic tangle of twisting vines, shrieking topiaries, and confusing signage that pointed in all the wrong directions. "And remember," Jeff added cheerfully, "random love spells have been scattered throughout the maze. Try not to fall in love with the wrong creature. Or yourself." Arthur muttered under his breath. You're going to get us sued by at least 3 different planes of existence. The starting bell, an actual severed goat horn, sounded with a sad, wheezing note. The contestants bolted. Lilith glided confidently into the maze, kicking open a vine-covered door with a theatrical flair. Mort floated after her, calling out awkward pickup lines. Are you a toothache? Because you're making me crazy. Blorp oozed nervously, leaving a sticky trail behind him. For about 20 glorious seconds, Arthur dared to think it might go smoothly. Then the first love spell detonated. Lilith staggered out of the maze a moment later, her eyes glazed over, clutching Mort's hand like it was the greatest treasure on earth. I would die for you, she whispered dramatically. Again. Mort blinked. Thanks? Before anyone could react, Blorp accidentally triggered a second love spell. With a horrific splorch sound, he hurled himself forward, landing squarely at Arthur's feet. I love you, Blorp wailed. Arthur took one horrified step back. No, you do not. Jeff cackled and tossed a bouquet of screaming flowers into the air. Love is in the air. Arthur wiped slime off his shoe with a grimace. You didn't put any safeguards in those spells, did you? Jeff tilted his head thoughtfully. I mean, define safeguards. Chaos continued to unfold in the maze. Topiary wolves chased Mort. Lilith tried to fight a hedge that insulted her boots. Blorp attempted to sing a love ballad to Arthur but dissolved into a green puddle halfway through the second verse. Meanwhile, the camera drones circled gleefully overhead, capturing every shriek, slip, and slime splatter in glorious high-definition misery. Jeff, clipboard still in hand, watched it all with pure delight. This is going better than I ever dreamed, he said. The audience is going to love it. Arthur wiped a smear of green off the camera lens and muttered, What audience? No one's even broadcasting this nightmare. Jeff winked. Not on this plane of reality. Before Arthur could demand clarification, Lilith came storming back through the maze, dragging Mort behind her and looking furious. He tried to ghost me, she hissed, fangs bared. Technically, Mort muttered. I'm always ghosting. Quiet, she snapped. Blorp wobbled up behind them, clutching a slimy bouquet of what looked like dead roses and wringing his hands anxiously. Jeff clapped his hands together. Contestants, it's time for the elimination round. The contestants froze. So did Arthur, mostly because the glowing sign above the stage now read, Sudden Death Round. Arthur narrowed his eyes. Jeff, what does sudden death mean in this context? Jeff grinned wickedly. You'll see. A trap door creaked open ominously at center stage. Somewhere deep in the house, something very large and very hungry growled. The contestants exchanged nervous glances. Arthur tightened his grip on the cursed camera. Blorp whimpered. Jeff raised one clawed hand dramatically. At the end of this round, someone won't be coming back. The stage lights dimmed. Thunder rumbled outside. The fog machines roared to life. And somewhere in the darkness, something started to crawl. The trapdoor yawned wider, spilling thick, glowing fog across the blood-red stage. A massive, shadowy creature began hoisting itself out. Too many arms, too many teeth. And for one brief, shining moment, Arthur genuinely wondered if Jeff had accidentally summoned something that would finally end all of this. He wasn't that lucky. The creature lurched fully into the light and revealed itself. A massive papier-mâché hydra, badly glued together, clearly powered by cheap magic and even cheaper batteries. One of the heads was already sagging. Jeff beamed proudly at the shoddy abomination. Meet the Love Hydra. Defeat it, or be eliminated. Lilith hissed and drew a dagger from somewhere beneath her leather corset. Mort whimpered and immediately tried to sink into the floorboards. Blorp simply melted halfway into a nervous puddle. Arthur stared at the spectacle, dead inside, while his headset blared with stage directions like, get a close-up of the slime monster crying, and, more fog, we need 60% more fog. The Hydra lunged, or at least stumbled forward, one head drooping pathetically, and the contestants sprang into action. Lilith moved first, launching herself into a spinning kick that snapped one of the Hydra's cardboard heads clean off. Confetti burst from the stump. Jeff clapped enthusiastically. Excellent form. Bonus points for flair. Mort floated backward, accidentally tangling himself in a vine from the haunted hedge maze, while Blorp, shaking violently, flung a glob of slime at the creature. The hydra slipped and fell, hard. The entire papier-mâché monstrosity collapsed with a pitiful whoomp, splitting apart in a shower of glitter and sad mechanical whirring. There was a long, awkward silence. One of the hydra's heads rolled gently across the stage and landed at Arthur's feet. Jeff coughed into his fist. A truly noble battle, very dramatic, full of passion and improvisation. He snapped his fingers, and the glitter-bloodied, sudden death round sign above the stage fizzled out. In its place, a fresh banner unfurled, still smoking from whatever realm it came from. Final Rose Ceremony. Arthur watched in horror as Jeff produced a battered bouquet of blackened roses and called the contestants to the center of the stage. "This is the moment you've all been waiting for," Jeff announced solemnly. "Only one of you will receive the final fang." Lilith stood tall and proud, a predatory gleam in her crimson eyes. Mort hovered nearby, looking like he deeply regretted everything about his continued existence. Blorp, bless him, shivered uncontrollably, leaking tiny puddles at his feet. Jeff paced dramatically in front of them, milking the tension for all it was worth. "Incredible courage," he said, stopping in front of Lilith. "Unforgettable spirit," he added, pausing at Mort. "And unmatched enthusiasm," he finished, glancing down at Blorp's slowly spreading goo puddle. Jeff turned, twirled, and, after a few suspicious mutterings in a forgotten language, thrust the final fang rose into Blorp's gelatinous hands. There was an audible splorch. Blorp blinked up at him, eyes wide with terror and disbelief. I won?" "You won," Jeff announced. "Love conquers all, even crippling anxiety, and a total lack of skeletal structure." Confetti rained from the ceiling, along with what Arthur hoped was just fake blood. A mariachi band of skeletons kicked into a poorly tuned love song in the background. Blorp tried to jump for joy, but immediately puddled into a shapeless heap of slime, sobbing incoherently with happiness. Lilith made a disgusted noise and stormed off, kicking over a fog machine as she left. Mort simply phased through the floor and disappeared. Jeff grabbed Arthur by the shoulders, eyes gleaming with manic glee. "We did it, Arthur. True love. Ratings gold." Arthur, drenched in fake blood, camera slime, and about 24 minor hexes, stared blankly at him. "No one," Arthur said, "is ever going to watch this." "Oh, ye of little faith," Jeff said smugly. "It's already trending on 3 Netherworld streaming services. We're huge in the Phantom Zone." Arthur closed his eyes and counted backward from 10, wishing for once that something Jeff summoned would eat him. Jeff threw an arm around his shoulders. "And just think, this was only Season 1. Next up, Deadliest Catch, Dating at Sea." Arthur groaned loudly. Somewhere in the corner, the hydra's severed head gave a weak, mechanical growl. The fog thickened, the lights dimmed, and in the distance, the love ballad sung by skeletal mariachis reached a shrieking, deeply off-key crescendo. Somewhere, somehow, Jeff was already planning the next nightmare, and Arthur, poor Arthur, was stuck along for the ride.